we're going to talk about fundraising and apparel. The thing that's really going to be important today about fundraising, there's going to be a five-letter acronym, and you can use the paper still. If you could write out, maybe going down your page, N-A-D-I-A, N-A-D-I-A, Nadia. That would be great, Nadia. And the N is going to stand for the letter or the word need. So I want you to jot down the word need. And if you want to do a dash out there. So we got to talk about why do you need money? And I call that the why. A solid fundraiser is always going to start with the why. And the why is going to sometimes be a piece of equipment that you'll put a purchase order in for. It could be the tuba or the banquet that we talked about at the beginning of class. The why could be an instructor or a field trip. One thing the why shouldn't be in fundraising is more money. I need you to your why needs to be a problem that the money will solve. And so something that you would be, something that you would do, or something you would have, like something that you would put a purchase order in for. Now, when it comes to that why, I always recommend my teachers ask why 2 more times. And you could do this when you're putting something on your calendar as well. Like, before something ends up on your calendar, make sure that it has a what? Make sure that thing on your calendar has a why. And then ask yourself, why, how many more times? 2. Because then you'll get to your philosophy of music education. Usually 3 whys, and you should end up at your philosophy of music education. If you don't, if you end up somewhere else, you probably need to change your why. So why do we need what of our art areas? Are there any instrumental?
Everybody here is instrumental. Most are winds, 3 are strings. So this is all.
So I would be orchestra band?
And orchestra.
Okay, because I don't want to offend my general ed.
Oh, well, I mean, someone may be teaching, elementary.
Absolutely. So where's a band person or orchestra? Or we're all band orchestra, sorry. Why would an educator need to order a tuba? Not just because we don't have one, but what's the next why?
The band program is growing, and you have more students, and you want to have more instruments that students can play on.
So and that would turn into everybody's holding an instrument.
Yeah.
And why do we need to have everybody holding an instrument?
Because I want as many people involved in my classroom as possible.
And then one more, why do you want everyone involved in your classroom?
Because I believe every student should have the privilege to be able to play music and be in a good community.
And you see how those couple more whys, it's kind of annoying, but it boils you into some sort of philosophy statement. That behavior would allow you to be ready to speak to your principal about this fundraising need, and also to address your booster group or just your parent body in general, but also your students who are pre-adolescent or adolescent, and they are not as passionate about the class that they're in as you are, in many cases. Some of them are wondering why they can't just play Candy Crush right now or Dress to Impress, and they'd rather do Post 28 than listen to you talk about music education or the tuba. Do you know what Post 28 is? Okay. Does anybody in here know what Post 28 is? That's right. So your 9-year-old will get there eventually, or maybe not. Why? So it could be different so an instrument's going to kind of go into that category. Here's a little tip. When you meet your principal, here's a little tip that worked for me more than once. Ask your principal first to buy the thing before you start a fundraiser. Always ask the principal to buy the thing before you start a fundraiser. Or before you spend your internal money. If you already have the money and you could go buy it, still ask the principal to buy it. If they say no, ask them to go half. What does that mean?
You pay half, I'll pay half.
That's right. If they say no to the tuba, ask them to buy half a tuba. And if they say no to that, say, no problem, please approve this fundraiser. But have the fundraiser with you, right? They don't want you to fundraise because that's going to burn you out. You don't get paid to fundraise. My principals typically said no to fundraising is she would have preferred to split something with me or encourage me to delay because she knew that I was saying yes to everything, including fundraisers. And a fundraiser is something you say yes to, and that goes eventually on your what? On your calendar, and that's a box you can't get back. So that's a little tip. I got lockers that way, winger lockers that way, and I got multiple tubas that way by splitting it with the principal. How are we doing on the projector?
Just try to get that on. The TVs are on, but then for some reason the projector's wonky.
The TVs would work too, but you didn't give me a little let me know.
Absolutely, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So why? Why is it on your calendar? Why are we fundraising for it? And that's going to be where I start. Where we don't start with what do people want to buy. Like, don't start with the product of a fundraiser or the method of the fundraiser, because if you don't need the fundraiser, then don't fundraise. Okay. The A, let's go with attitude. You can also do atmosphere. That's too hard for me to spell. I can spell attitude. Attitude. There's a couple different players that have to have the right attitude, but everybody in the room needs to be rowing together, right? We're rowing together on the fundraiser. So where does the group attitude reflect from? The students will reflect the attitude of whom?
The teacher.
And have you seen it over and over again?
In time, they take on the teacher's values.
It's a mirror, and we have for our teachers.
100%.
So you cannot stand in front of a group, even if you feel this way, you cannot say, I hate fundraising, we are starting a fundraiser today. You can't say, I hate the B major scale, everybody let's learn the B major scale. We might all kind of roll our eyes at all those sharps that we see, but we know that going through that leads us to a better spot musically. The fundraiser is the solution to a problem. So the fundraiser isn't like a pinprick, the fundraiser is a solution. The thing that's a pinprick is the bad tuba, the missing tuba. That's what we don't like. The fundraiser is the solution. But the attitude does start from the top. And I would recommend, when it comes to booster decisions and director decisions, the need to fundraise should probably be on the director, not the boosters. And then how we're going to do this, some of the how needs to be on the director, some of the how can be on the boosters. But if you're going to hire a fundraising consultant or do things in-house, I think there's some of that you need to decide, because if you let them decide, they're going to just be Googling fundraising and they'll end up with a fundraiser a month and all 12 of them will go bad, or because it just doesn't work to do 12 a month or 12 a year. So just have a good attitude about anything you approach, but especially optimism would be in your corner if you could be optimistic. You can't yell at children for 7 weeks and then on the 8th week of school expect them to do the fundraiser. Because they will be like, depending on the age you teach, they just like give you the finger. I taught middle school, so I didn't see a lot of that, but you could. You have to make deposits into students and adults if one day you want to make a withdrawal, right? You can't always withdraw from your students and from your partner and from your colleagues in your workplace, but never make a what? Deposit. And so just make sure that even, hey, I like those boots. Like, you can deposit in a subtle way without being a weirdo, without being arrested, and help a child get through the day. If you do it correctly, you will be the teacher that they chat about at the dinner table that night in a positive way. They're also going to talk about teachers that night that ruined their day. And you might be that teacher one day too.
You'll be both of them. You'll be both of those teachers in different ways.
Because if you tell a pre-adolescent to do anything, you yelled at them. Just so you know. Am I right, right? And if they've misplaced anything, somebody what did? Somebody has stolen it. Somebody stole my band binder. There is not a market for band binders,
Yeah.
you know. But, and just help them. Just know, make deposits so that when we have to do the B major scale or the fundraiser, you can make a withdrawal without overdrawing your tank. And this isn't a credit card. You can't necessarily make withdrawals on credit before you've made the deposit. You know, this is a debit card situation. You can only withdraw if there's actually something in the bucket. So, and hopefully that can apply to the B major scale and the kids who want to play the tuba. You're making deposits. All right. NAD, let's go to the D. That's going to be details. The I's that need to be dotted and the T's that need to be crossed in the fundraiser. So what are some details? So now we've moved away from why, and we're going to get it a little bit into the how of the fundraiser. So this is where like you could have like the scroll of options of fundraising, but some of the details might be how many? You know, how many fundraisers? That's going to be driven by another question. How much do I need to raise? Right? So that would probably be two that are pretty high level. How much do we need to raise? Which would be divided by how many students do I teach? Which would determine how much each student needs to raise, and then you can only raise so much, and then that means how many fundraisers do I need to have?
Yeah, you certainly can't depend on everybody to raise money. I mean, there's bound to be a percentage, right? 60%?
Yeah, it's probably similar to the folds that we just did, right? The left side of the page are not going to do the fundraiser. The right side of the page will sell like crazy and raise like crazy. And the middle two sections are looking left and right to see if they're going to do the fundraiser or not, right? And that's why we have fundraising prizes. We have fundraising prizes for the kids who aren't sure if they're going to do the fundraiser or not, right? We give away Chick-fil-A and other things
So
for the
before,
kids.
this is before, is it an incentive, or if you sell this, you get this?
I do my incentives for if you ask this many people, you get this. Remember Dr. Madsen talked about reward the behaviors you want repeated. And so I figured out that instead of rewarding them for how much they raised, I rewarded them for how many people they asked. Because if they asked 20 people, they probably reached their fundraising goal. But I also do reward them for how much they raised. But I also try to reward them for how many people they asked. You guys hear that little tip? Recognize how many people they what? Ask, not just how much they raise. How much do we need to raise? How many fundraisers will we have? Those are two.
So when I was teaching, what I experienced was that lots of people participate in fundraiser number 1, far fewer participate in fundraiser number 6.
And when you say people, do you mean like the student body, not the donors, right?
I'm talking about the people we are asking to do the fundraising for, yes.
That it goes down.
Correct.
And so he already made the point. So if we know we need to do 3 fundraisers, which one's going to go the best typically? Number what?
1.
Number 1. So when should that be? Well, my best results happen between the 3rd week of July and Labor Day. If you run a campaign with me the 3rd week of July through Labor Day, you are going to get a bigger profit check than Labor Day through Thanksgiving. So just knowing that the first 9 weeks, you're going to raise more with the same energy than you will in the second 9 weeks. And then the third 9 weeks, it's going to be more than the second 9 weeks. So first 9 weeks and third 9 weeks are stronger. And then second 9 weeks and fourth 9 weeks are weaker. And in this industry, I typically believe you should just stay away from fourth 9 weeks fundraising and just wait until the first 9 weeks again. Because your eighth graders or your 12th graders won't participate in that fourth 9 weeks campaign. And if you're a middle school guy, your sixth graders aren't in your room yet in April because they're still in elementary school. And if you're a high school guy, your freshmen aren't in your band room yet in April, they're still at the middle school, right? It would be really clever if middle school and high school feeder chains just fundraised all at the same time and fundraised together for the feeder chain. And you'd raise more money than you could imagine if the feeder chain just all was working at it together. That's where I've seen the fundraising just like explode. I don't have a case study of that. I've seen it at one situation in Texas where they created a foundation for the feeder chain. And that foundation was fundraising and they were blowing it up. It was a very clever idea. Other details, we've talked about how many, how much, when. You could get into like the how, like, am I going to do what Dr. McCutcheon and I did? Am I going to do a paper-based fundraiser, which is what you would have handed out as a teacher and what I handed out, where they got a catalog. This is one that has Yankee Candle in it. Now, Yankee Candle is a great brand. Have you ever heard of Yankee Candle? So I try to have things that people do want, like not just junk. But so Yankee Candle is in here, surrounded by junk. But the Yankee Candle is in there, right? But it's a paper flyer with a carbon copy order form, paper order form. And what's unique about it, it's blank. Every time a child does this fundraiser, their order form is going to be what? Blank. Now, and that's how we did it, right? And this had to go around for 2 weeks. Has anybody ever done this style, right? And they had to collect the money in this little plastic bag for 2 weeks, and somehow this all got back to the teacher, which then all that money had to be counted and receipted, and then this order form has to be torn apart into your fundraising guy, and then 2 weeks later, all the stuff shows up. Sound about right? So you don't know how the fundraiser went until all these forms get turned in. So you don't know if it's going well or it's going bad until this stuff comes in. But guess what's over by the time this stuff comes in? The fundraiser's over. You can't fix anything. So that's a paper fundraiser. Or you can do online fundraiser where everything that I just explained is all online, which is what I do. And the children have a catalog, but it's virtual. But they do have a blank order form the first time they do the fundraiser, but then when they're in 7th grade or 10th grade and they sign into the fundraiser, everybody that gave in 9th grade is already in their account. And when they sign in 11th grade, maybe they added a few more people in 10th grade, and so now everybody from 9th and 10th grade is in their account. And now the software works where a kindergartner child, dad makes the account, and that same account can go with them all the way through 12th grade. Because those aunts and uncles, those adults that like you or are supposed to like you, aren't going to change in most cases unless a family has a fracture.
So is that run by you or a company you work for?
It's a company I represent. Yeah. And what's unique about our particular platform, and there are dozens, if not hundreds of platforms now. So now you have to shop these platforms that are out there. But what I like about the platform that we represent is that we don't treat the band fundraiser as a silo. We look at the campus as an account. And so a trumpet player, when they sign in for the band fundraiser, all of their aunts and uncles are going to be there. But if they happen to be on the volleyball team and they sign up for the volleyball fundraiser, all of those aunts and uncles are going to be available for the volleyball fundraiser. And so it becomes a campus account now for their fundraising. Or we can do their prom tickets or their yearbook or their dance, like we can do this, the school can collect money. And then if we are going online or paper or the car wash, I just did an online car wash for a teacher where we pre-sold the car wash tickets online. That way the people had already paid for their car wash before the event. And when they checked out and paid their money, they got an email with their receipt for their car wash payment. And then they also did on-the-spot car wash but the people getting their car wash just paid by QR code. And so the teacher didn't handle money, nor did the students.
They make $8,000.
You certainly can, because we add a donation button at the bottom. We add a donation button.
I buy a car wash and here's a $2,000 donation.
Because if they live out of town,
Yeah.
maybe they won't get their car washed. But,
That is a different way, that is absolutely.
so really, it's a
different way.
donation campaign with the ability to add a car wash. So certainly, we just sold onions at Melbourne High School, or Central Middle School, and they brought in 53,000, and we did an onion sale.
Can I just tell you, and I'm gonna leave, so I couldn't interrupt.